In Argentina, candidate Sergio Massa recognized Javier Milei as the new president-elect of the country after Sunday's runoff election. In Venezuela, citizens held a simulation of the consultative referendum for the defense of the Essequibo. Authorities extended voting day due to the high number of people at the polling stations. And in Palestine, the health ministry warned that the Israeli aggression has killed more than 12,000 Palestinians since October 7th. Hello, welcome to From the South. My name is Belén de los Santos, and from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba, we begin with the news. In Argentina, the presidential election closed with over 95% of the votes counted. The results show Javier Milei as a winner with 55.78% against Sergio Massa's 44.21%. According to the information provided by the National Electoral Chamber, 76% of the 35.8 million Argentinians eligible to vote in this ballot went to the polls to choose between their next presidents. Sergio Massa offered statements in which he thanks all the people for their participation and support in this election. In addition, Massa accepted his defeat and congratulated Milei for becoming the new president of the Argentine Republic.
Obviously, the results are not what we expected, and I have contacted Javier Milei to congratulate him and wish him luck. Because he is the president that most Argentines choose for the next 4 years, and I did it convinced. That the most important thing we have to leave to Argentines tonight is the message that coexistence, dialogue, and respect for peace in the face of so much violence and disqualification is the best path we can take.
In Cuba, the fourth conference of the nation on emigration concluded with the presence of more than 400 participants from at least 50 countries. The purpose of the conference was to discuss the links with the country of origin, migration issues, culture, identity, and economic development. This conference was held after 19 years without being able to hold the event, but the great feature of this edition is that thanks to the changes in the migration policy, at least half of the participants, although living abroad, maintained their Cuban residency. In this regard, the closing ceremony was attended by President Miguel Díaz-Canel, who reiterated the will to continue developing a broad dialogue on the basis of mutual respect and defense of the homeland.
On behalf of the Cuban government, I reiterate our willingness to continue developing a frank and broad dialogue on the basis of mutual respect and the defense of the homeland. Today, as yesterday, with a commitment to continue in the battle to put an end to the genocidal blockade that has caused so much shortage, pain, and fracture in the Cuban family. The blockade imposed against our people as direct or indirect victims of that criminal policy. All of us gathered here are aware that it constitutes the greatest obstacle to the strengthening of the country's relations with the majority of Cubans residing abroad, since it hinders the regular, orderly, and safe flow of travelers, affects the links between nationals residing in the United States and their relatives and friends in Cuba, restricts the rights of their fellow citizens abroad, and affects their families in the first place.
In Venezuela, the National Electoral Council agreed to extend the timetable for the simulation of the consultative referendum for the defense of the Guayana Esequiba until the people who remain in line can exercise their right to vote. The electoral simulation exercise serves as practice for Venezuelans to familiarize themselves with the procedure to be carried out on December 3rd. Likewise, authorities indicated that the drill is being carried out with the best, most modern and transparent technology to guarantee the right of all Venezuelans. Well, citizens who have already exercised their right to vote expressed their support to the process in the defense of the Essequibo territory. And on this referendum drill day in Venezuela, on the right of Venezuela over the Essequibo territory, Venezuela National Assembly President and the chief of the Venezuela Toda campaign, which emphasizes the right to the integrity of the Venezuelan territory, had this to say about the drill and the spirit behind it.
We support with all forces the idea that we need to develop a plan, that a new government of Guyana Esequiba must be established, and these people will receive their IDs and identification papers. There are many questions, and all of them will be answered by a single person. The next December 3rd. What we have seen is an explosion of love, generosity, of Venezuelans supporting the country. Today was not about politics. Today was about Venezuelans supporting the country.
And the president of the National Electoral Council, Elvis Amoroso, detailed that the voting is being fast and effective due to the updated electoral system that the country has.
We Venezuelans have the best electoral system in the world, and we have to put it to the test at this moment. When we come out to exercise our right to vote in this simulation for next December 3rd, it is very fast, this voting that is being done today. Of course, for December 3rd, it will be faster because we are already familiar with this modality we have for these machines.
Let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates, and more. Other stories coming up, stay with us. Welcome back. The Palestinian Health Ministry warned that the Israeli aggression in the Gaza Strip and the West Bank has killed more than 12,000 Palestinians since October 7th. According to the Palestinian Ministry of Health, the number of people killed by the Israeli siege on Gaza has risen to 12,415 Palestinians, including 5,000 children, 3,250 women, and 690 elderly people. Meanwhile, the number of wounded reached 32,500. The Health Institute warned that the Israeli occupation forces have forcibly evacuated the Al-Shifa hospital, one of the largest in Gaza, forcing the wounded and refugees to walk to other health centers, many of which do not have the capacity to receive more people. And in the Gaza Strip, Palestinian citizens denounced the use of internationally banned weapons by the Israeli occupation forces against the civilian population.
During the whole night, they threw bombs at us. All the houses were burned. They threw leaflets to move to the south. The way was very difficult. All of the people left together. the adults with the children and the elderly. We could not protect ourselves because there was neither civil defense nor rescue teams. The houses were burning and the people themselves had to put out the fire. Everything was very difficult. We left at 8:30 in the morning. We kept walking until 3 o'clock in the afternoon. We all fled with our women, young people, children, old people, my mother, and my in-laws all at once. Everything is misery and humiliation. The Jews stopped us there and detained us for about 4 hours. People were punishing us. My son fainted and fell down. My daughter could not breathe. That also happened to my wife. She could not breathe. This is not life. Until now, we don't know where to go for real. We don't know what to do. Look at them. Here they are. Walk around and look at them. There are more than 25 people here. This is my family group. This is my daughter, and she is wounded by the bombing. This is the little one. Came here, daughter. See how she is walking. Look how my daughter is walking. It is a humiliation. My daughter has 30 days that she can't use her leg. Now she is limping. She is a child. We are living in misery for God's sake. Look at us. Do you think this is fair that we are like this? We are citizens. They gave us flyers. We took refugee in the school. They gave us a small pocket of rice for every 8 people. I swear to God, for 20 people they gave us 2 trays.
And the president of Palestine, Mahmoud Abbas, requested on Saturday that the U.S. President Joe Biden interfere in the war in Gaza.
President Biden, I urge you on all your official and humanitarian traits to stop this catastrophe, or rather this genocide against our innocent people, and to make our people besieged in Gaza breathe a sigh of relief. This war must be stopped immediately. How can this genocide be justified as self-defense? Actually, these are war crimes deserving punishment.
Likewise, the head of state highlighted the cases of thousands of families victims of this conflict.
The horrendous massacres committed by the Israeli occupying forces against our Palestinian people in Gaza, including most recently in Al-Fakhora and Tel Hasadar schools on Sunday, which claimed the lives of hundreds of people forcibly displaced from their homes. Once again, they compel me to demand that you and world leaders take accountability for stopping this aggression and the genocidal crimes against our people. So far, over 42,000 Palestinians, mostly children and women, have been victims, in addition to the widespread destruction of tens of thousands of homes, schools, hospitals, places of worship, public facilities, and infrastructure.
And the foreign minister of Venezuela, Ivan Gil, reaffirmed that the country strongly condemns the bloody massacre conducted by Israel at the UNRWA Fakura school in northern Gaza. The government of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela categorically expresses its repudiation and absolute condemnation of the massacre perpetrated by Israeli Zionism at the UNRWA Fakura school, located in the Jabalia refugee camp in the northern Gaza Strip on Saturday morning, November 18th, which left over 200 deaths, mostly children. Venezuela joins the request made by South Africa, Bangladesh, Bolivia, Comoros, and Djibouti to the International Court of Justice to investigate the Israeli aggression towards Gaza, characterized by war crimes and genocide perpetrated by the Zionist tyranny of Israel. And the communique also stated that they reiterate our appeal to the international community and to the conscience of all humanity to join efforts and continue with actions leading to an end of the indiscriminate slaughter of women, children, and the elderly committed by the occupying power of Israel to the brotherly Palestinian people. And Palestinian Minister of Health, Mai Akaila, said on Sunday that the Israeli occupation is committing a genocide against the entire healthcare system in the Gaza Strip, including hospitals, medical doctors, and patients. Speaking at the press conference, Al-Qaila called on the United Nations, the international health organizations, and the International Committee of the Red Cross to exert pressure on Israel to allow the transport of the remaining children and patients from the El-Shifa hospital in Gaza to hospitals in the West Bank or Egypt. She highlighted that no hospital in Gaza has the capacity to accommodate the massive number of wounded under the non-stop Israeli bombardment. The minister also questioned Israel's rationale behind preventing the entry of medicines and depriving patients of the right to receive treatment. Al-Khaila called for an immediate cessation of the Israeli genocide in Gaza and the West Bank, demanding a halt to the targeting, shelling, and blockade of medical and healthcare facilities. And also in Palestine, 60 Palestinian journalists have been killed by the Israeli siege since the beginning of the attacks on the Gaza Strip. Authorities reported this Sunday on the murder of the journalist and president of the institution Press House, Bilal Jadallah, in an Israeli air attack. In this sense, the Center for the Defense and Freedom of Journalists has repeatedly condemned systematic attacks against journalists since the beginning of the Tel Aviv aggression. At the same time, they emphasize that the forces of the Israeli regime are attacking Palestinian journalists, spreading rumors and accusations against them that put their lives at risk. And in Portugal, citizens mobilized in support of the Palestinian cause and in rejection of the Israeli siege against the Gaza Strip. Called by the Collective for the Liberation of Palestine and under the slogan "Stop Genocide, Free Palestine Now," the demonstrators marched from the town square, where the headquarters of the City Hall of Lisbon is located, to the gates of the Assembly of the Republic. The mobilized expressed their support and solidarity with the victims of Israel in the Gaza massacre and also the defense of the immediate ceasefire to stop the massacre. The demonstrators also called on Western governments to withdraw their political, diplomatic, economic, and military support for Israel. And we have a second short break coming up. But before we invite you to visit our YouTube channel at teleSUR English, where you will be able to rewatch our interviews, top stories, special broadcastings, and more. Hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. Final short break, don't go away. Welcome back. In France, citizens demonstrated rejection of the release of the police officer accused of murdering a teenager on June 27th. The murder of the teenager summoned the protest on Sunday afternoon and called the decision of the judges unfair. Likewise, the judges alleged that the release of the police officer represents a lower risk for public order. In this context, in June, a police officer shot at Nahel, a 17-year-old Frenchman of North African origin, in the French municipality of Nanterre, which led to a goalkeeper disturbances, rejecting police action and calling into question the living conditions and appreciation by the authorities towards the vulnerable French population. And Zimbabwe's health ministry declared a state of emergency in the capital, Harare, over a cholera outbreak that has claimed dozens of lives across the country. According to the authorities, more than 7,000 suspected cases from 150 deaths from cholera have been reported so far throughout the African country. Officials indicated that the city of Harare is the most affected by this disease, where 13 people have died since the outbreak began in February. In this context, they urged the population to maintain the corresponding biosecurity measures, since cholera is contracted from a bacterium that is generally transmitted through contaminated water or food. And the governments of Armenia and Azerbaijan established an agreement on the basis of principles for a peace treaty. The information was released by the Armenian Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan during the opening of the Parliamentary Assembly of the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe. According to Pashinyan, it was agreed that Armenia and Azerbaijan would have no territorial claims between each other. That is, there is a mutual recognition of each territorial integrity on the basis of a staff maps of the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. The territorial conflict between these two nations is long-standing, based mainly on the control of the Nagorno-Karabakh region an area which, during the existence of the Soviet Union, was adhered to the Azerbaijan, but where the Armenian population has lived. And in Japan, low household consumption generated a risk of economic recession after 2 consecutive quarters of growth. After a 4.5% growth in economy in the second quarter of 2023, the country's gross domestic product declined by 2.1% in the following quarter, a larger drop than expected in the region. Low citizen consumption and weak exports complicated the central bank's efforts to remove monetary stimulus. Economist Stefan Angri commented that the Japanese economy is not out of danger of a feasible recession, warning that the end of exports brought economic weakness back to the forefront. In the Dominican Republic, death toll rises to 9 after heavy rainfalls. There are 5 women and 4 men who were traveling in the crashed vehicles and whose recovery has taken about 7 hours. Most deaths were caused following the collapse of a section of an overpass that fell on several vehicles traveling on the infrastructure. Emergency services are still working at the site, as it is feared that there are many further victims. After the incident, Director of the Emergency Operations Center, Juan Manuel Mendez, reaffirmed on Saturday evening the alert levels in the Dominican Republic due to the weather storm affecting the country continue.